Not gonna do fancy builds.
Time flies
Thank
when
you.
you're having fun.
Badman516, welcome back 6 months in a row. So, ZVZ on a 4-player map. Thank you, Day Out 5, for joining them as well.
Full indeed.
On a 4-player map, if you're not gonna drone scout, then there's a solid bit of risk if you go for a hatch first. So I'm not gonna go for the hatch first. I'm gonna go for the pool first, so I have access to a queen, potentially spine crawlers, and I don't stick my neck out with a hatchery that I don't have vision to defend. I'm gonna put the spawning pool so I can have a little bit of a gap here. I can use a queen on hold position to choke off Zerglings trying to get into my mineral armor. I'm gonna go down for the expansion with this drone. Usually 19 or 20 supply, and then I'm gonna get the gas behind. And I'm getting the gas. I do want Zergling speed. The pool, getting the pool at this time is mostly just a safety valve. In case I need the spine crawler, I'm not going to go for a gasless build because that means you don't have the potential to move out on the map. Yeah, get my gas started. I've got an overlord. I'm sending it out to the middle. So it looks like he's not in this position. I'm going to send a Zergling to either base for scouting. I'm actually going to get another set of Zerglings just in case. Yeah, he's obviously not here. I would see the creep by now, and he'd probably have an expansion. Not always, but usually. Gonna bring this queen down to the ramp. I don't want to commit it all the way to the low ground until the base is done, just in case. Because right now what I can do is I can put these on hold position, and if he tries to get Zerglings in, I can block it. So he does have an expansion here, so no longer need to be too worried. I'm going to get another queen for safety purposes. We see Zergling speed if the pool's having a seizure, and there's a Baneling nest there. But he has 2 gases, which is definitely interesting. You don't usually see 2 gases early because then you don't really have the resources. Same thing with the Baneling nest here. I'm going to be using this. Also moving my overlords into position. Overlords are very important in ZVZ. Gonna have another overlord. This one's gonna be kind of out my front, so I have just vision if he's making a bunch of banelings outside my base or something. And I'm making a single set of lings. This set of lings right now, the purpose of it is to make banelings. Like if he makes a flood of Zerglings and tries to attack, well, I have some sort of defense at home. So yeah, we see 6 lings. I'm actually losing vision here, so I need to get this overlord into position. I'm making a couple more lings. We're going to get those banes started. And I do want a third base. That's usually a sticking point in ZVZ. If you can get your third base up safely, then you're in good shape. I'm spreading the creep between the bases. It helps me out moving my queens around and just units in general. We're going to start a roach one as well. Safety purposes. I'm going to put a random baneling in the middle of the map because you never know what it might catch. And an evolution chamber here. And just now, oh, I whiffed it, unfortunately. But now we need to make more Zerglings. Let's see if he's paying attention on this side. And that's why you want to get to the Zerglings before they're... Because he's going to be expecting, he's going to be looking at his Zerglings when they get to your creep. But if even a little bit, you don't have to go very far, but even a little bit out, and you can catch them, because a lot of players won't be paying attention until right when they're on top of you. So that's why having banelings just kind of almost in random locations is very effective. But yeah, I'm getting some drones. I'm actually going to get some zerglings. These are mostly to scout if he has anything I need to worry about. I'm up to 36 drones. So now I am getting a little bit of extra gas. I'm still making drones, by the way, just because he started it. Thank you.
Do you know anything about Starcraft?
I'll believe it when I see it.
You play it?
And I mean it. We'll see. We'll see. I don't comment on rumors. But yeah, I want to see if he has a lair. If he has, okay, he has both these gases. Does he have a lair? He does, and he has a spire done. So Hydra is done immediately. Pull my OVs back. I'm getting spore crawlers. I have enough roaches to stay alive here. I'm moving my OVs out of into safer positions, but I have some creep. I can get some spores without cutting into my economy. And remember, Hydralists have a solid chunk of HP as long as you make sure you don't take damage early on. You're usually okay. Because I have 3 bases now, remember. Okay. That drone, you got to be careful. Sometimes the drones get caught and they're not making the spore crawlers you need. So, yeah, get some creep spread. Now, in this case, a lot of people ask, like, well, what's the point of creep spread in ZVZ? Won't it help them? Usually you want the creep spread for the vision, but in this case especially, I have ground units against air units. Air units get no benefit from the creep spread. They don't get the speed bonus. So right now, spreading the creep is very much in my favor, even if it's on his side of the map. Clever girl. Another Bane tried to sneak in. I'm transferring over. But around that 6 or 7 minute mark is when you start to run out of resources a bit. I haven't actually seen a single Mutalist, so I'm maybe he switched up. Maybe he's going for roaches, something like that. But there's no reason I need to be freaking out, like, trying to get damage done, because I got my 3rd base quicker. I have all the tech I need. So if I'm just continually scouting, then I'm in an okay spot. Yeah, you see he has mutas over here. He's invested 700, 800, 900 gas, and there's a hive on the way. So when you see someone going for all this tech, it's like, well, how do I deal with Ultralisk? Now, the key to dealing with Ultralisk is not letting them get Ultralisk. Because right now, he shouldn't be able to go for another base, try to tech switch, and defend at the same time. He just shouldn't have enough units. So I'm just going to make a bunch of roaches. Hydras, a little bit of everything. Gotta have some roaches and banelings in front so he doesn't just roll me over with a few banes. But I should have plenty of hydras. They already have the upgrades. 2 sneaky banes trying to get in. But we're going to attack forward here. He still has a lot of mutas. But once again, he has +1 attack. So this is enough mutas, by the way. So we're actually just going to try to get damage done with the roaches here. So I bring roaches into every side, and then I sit back, and I'm going to build another round of Hydralists, is the plan. Because I'm killing most of his drones here, to be honest. We've still got 2 roaches over there. But yeah, he's put all of his money pretty much into these mutas. So that means he had very little on the ground. But now I need to regroup, I need to consolidate, because all I need to do is knock him out of the sky now. Just put all my Hydralists together. It's more important to kill drones than to kill the hatch, because he doesn't have enough drones to mine from it then anyways, so... It's not like he's mining out. So I didn't try to focus it down there. But yeah, he might have a hive. He might be building some new tech, but just safe stop. I'm getting +2. I have 51 drones. Going up to 60 is fine. If you have 50, you're probably good as long as you have enough to do damage with. He's got the Mutaflock here. I'm gonna bring the hydras back and let the roaches go. Get a couple more spore crawlers so I can eventually move this across, but this is where it's very important not to use the select all army hotkey. Because that way I can have two different types of units doing two different types of things. There goes that hatch. And this should drag his Mutalisk back. His Mutalisk should be coming back here. And so, when he eventually brings all of his Mutas back, there you go, the Hydralisks are going to be knocking on the front door. And they should be there to finish the job as we pop these overlords. Doesn't he already have a Bane Nest? Yeah. The double Bane Nest threats. Pulling the drones, but that's far, far, far too many Hydras. So, the summary there is that I saw he was committing early on to a solid amount of Ling Bane, so I knew if I just played somewhat defensive, I sat back a bit, then I could eventually just get a better economy and have better tech. Even if he does pull out something like Mutas, in cross positions, there's such a distance between us that I don't need to panic and say like, oh my god, 17 spore crawlers and no drones. The worker count should reflect it there, as you can see. He actually kept it kind of even, but the lead I gained was in tech, for the most part. Alright. So, ZVZ, once again, Overlord placement early on, little tricks like the Banelings, moving the Banelings out to greet the Zerglings. Especially at the lower level, you know, and I know lower level Zerg players know they do this too. They just send their Zerglings and then they kind of forget about them until they show up at the other side of the map. So if you have a Baneling anywhere in the path, it has a pretty good chance to get a hit and kill a lot of Zerglings. Honor grounds. I am pretty sad. I would rather Paladino be removed than this map, because I've grown to like, at first I was like, this map is ridiculous. It's too big. It's too big. I can't wrap my head around it. It's just too large. But then after a while, I mean, it's a bit awkward, but it makes for entertaining games a lot of the time. So. Alright, so we've got Terran versus Protoss. I'm going to go with the 1-1-1 expand, which is getting your tech up. I'm going to get my gas first. I already should have had that gas, to be honest. Thank you, Bajango15. Welcome back. Glad you still enjoy. And I'm going to scout. Usually I wouldn't scout quite so early against Protoss, but I'm going... Well, look who scouted earlier. He sent his probe out at the 0-second mark. He pulled that first probe out of one of the close positions, so he's either at the bottom right. Based on the angle, I think he came from the bottom right. Now, I can't definitively say that, but because he came in at a straight angle instead of like curving around a little, I feel like he's in the bottom right. That little bit of pathing can sometimes give it away, so that's what we're looking at now. I'm not 100% though. You can't guarantee it. But let's see if I'm right on that count. I am. Yeah. Just those little things. I'm gonna steal his gas because that actually hurts a Protoss pretty badly. He has no cyber core, so he's expanded. I already know that. So stealing his gas will slow down everything significantly. Yeah, we see the expansion there. He's taking this gas. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to mine from it, but you can tell he's like, well, shit. That's the thought process right now. He's probably making a zealot. Nope, the gateway lights up when it's building. It's not lighting up. It's not building. And I'm a little bit late on another depot coming out here. And I'm gonna do something I've been liking this lately. Now, this is one of those builds. If you're gonna do a build like this, you gotta be very careful to remember what you're doing at home. So I'm gonna do a bit of Hellion harass. Because I know he's not gonna have his tech early on, so I don't really need anti-air. Thank you, Samra. Welcome back. But it's very easy to get caught up in microing 2 Hellions and forget you have to do anything else at home. Like, you could micro those 2 Hellions for 30 seconds, and suddenly you have hundreds of minerals. You have 600, 700, 800 minerals back at home, and you kill 5 probes? Well, you missed out on making 5 STVs, so you gotta be very careful about that. Let me get rid of these. I'm now gonna get a couple Widow Mines and do a Widow Mine drop for that follow-up harassment. I'm actually going to go run over to the other side, and I'm remembering back at home, it takes 3 hits to kill the probes, so just keep that in mind. That was a nice hit. And this also helps with the reducing the overcharges, which is the objective there. And now I'm going to get 2 more barracks up because I'm going to follow this up with a bio attack. It's a bit technical, but we also saw he had a Robo and a Twilight, which it means he doesn't have any Oracles I need to worry about. I'm going to bring this guy over here as well. Got a nice Widow Mine hit. He has an overcharge here. I baited it out. And I'm going to drop the Widow Mine in, and I'm going to get the medevac out of there. This is a suicide mission. Sorry. And now I see the positioning, so I can actually get a nice Liberator siege up here. I'm starting a siege tank as well. I'm going to get 1 Viking, because right now I can't really use more medevacs. I don't even have the just general units. Also, I got supply block because I'm a noob. Siege up the Liberator. He can't really hit that, is the idea, though he does have overcharges kind of close. So now everything's going into lining up an attack. When I have stim, combat shields, and +1 finishing, I should be able to lay down a knockout blow. This build is not, like, I'm not supposed to kill him. That's not the objective. The objective is to just keep him busy for long enough that I can eventually knock him out with a decisive push. So that's what I'm doing right now. Have a couple tanks, a little bit more. Can that Stalker hit? He's trying to get... He actually doesn't have high ground vision right now. It's part of the problem for him, so... So that's helping out. A pretty abusive Liberator positioning, I will say. But he's so busy, he doesn't have a 3rd base. A Protoss usually wants a 3rd base by this time. He doesn't really have all its gas. He hasn't been able to put his tech together. So now I'm in a very comfortable position to just sit back. And now this is the hardest part. As a Terran player against a Protoss, a lot of players struggle with how do you even damage a Protoss? Usually they can just turtle up with overcharge. It's little things like Hellions, a well-timed Widow Mine drop, the right Liberator positioning. That's how you damage a Protoss player. And keep them off balance for long enough to actually kill them. Get that Liberator out of there. I'm still going to camp it out, but... Now this is a pretty damn scary army. We're going to have stim, combat shields, and +1 here. Getting some turrets, mostly for DTs, but partially for warp prisms. Alright. Don't I have another medevac? There it is. I had it from earlier. But now I'm gonna scan ahead. We look, I don't know what the army consists of, but it shouldn't be very much. I'm gonna siege up while I come in. Oh, he's paying attention, but that should distract him for a second. There's a warp prism. This is why I kept some units at home. I'm gonna move in at the same time. He doesn't even know I'm here. I got the warp prism. I had the Viking. And one overcharge is no match as we power down all the gateways here. He pretty much has no production now, unfortunately. And everything comes together. That stalker had a bad day. GG. Just the most important part of TVP is staying on top of your build. It's staying on top of your early harass, but also not forgetting you need to make supply depots. You need to make barracks before you think you do. The biggest mistake, well, maybe not the most common mistake, because obviously there are bigger mistakes, but the most common mistake I see out of low-level Terran players is either no focus or too much focus on harassment. Either they have this incredible, like, they're constantly microing their Liberator away from Stalkers with 900 minerals and no SCVs producing back home, or they fly their medevac into 2 overcharges and lose it while they're supply blocked. Like, those are the two big things. So if you can kind of find a nice middle ground where you do what you need to do with your harass, but also make sure you're making supply depots and you're making your barracks, you're gonna be pretty well off. Now we've got a Zerg. Let's see what I end up with. Rotas. I'm gonna just play very safe. Once again, we're going with the safest builds to open up with. I'm gonna scout off the gateway. You don't need to scout right off the bat. In fact, a lot of the time, scouting immediately hurts you more than it helps you. Sure, you might see that he has a pool up earlier, but you've actually lost a significant amount of minerals by sending, like, your first probe, like a probe right off the bat. So usually it's better to scout a little bit later, and then you'll have more resources to work with to defend. Assuming he has an expansion, I'm going to lay down my Nexus on the low ground. If he doesn't, he has a pool, in which case we got to be a little bit more defensively minded. He does have a hatchery. That's a hatchery first, which means I'm safe enough to take an expansion. We see he has gas, so he's working on Zergling speed. Gonna hang out. Well, there's nothing really else to see here, so I'm gonna patrol between the 2 bases. Is this? Yeah, I did that right. Okay. And we're gonna work on setting up a wall on the low ground if I could ever figure out how to make one. Nope. That should be okay. I don't know. I fail at walls so much. But the general idea, this is more of a general theme then a perfect... I think I made that pylon a bit too far forward, and it's going to keep me from building a gateway in that position. Let's not worry about that now. Little things. Getting adept right off the bat. I'm going to actually wall off with the Twilight Council, because I'm going to be going for adept glaives, which is probably the safest opener, because it keeps you safe against Zerglings. And you can put pressure on a player who's going for roaches. Of course, if they're going for roaches, you don't just want adepts. But it gives you... It allows you to keep them on his side of the map, pretty much. I'm going to send that first adept out as well. Get the glaive started over here. I always hotkey my mothership core. Starting to get the gateways up. I killed the drone over here. But I'm delaying a third base, and that's real important. And I probably just forced out a lot of Zerglings here, so... I don't want to talk about how bad this wall is right now. We're gonna keep them busy. This is not a good wall. It is just a tribute. So the reason you don't want 2 pylons or even a pylon at all in the wall is because a Baneling bus now can just rip through everything. It would kill me more than likely. So let's go see if he has this base yet. Also, we're gonna get some pylons on the edges. Well, mostly for Zergling drop. He's got Overlord speed. So, something to point out. And overcharge, kill the Ovi. Get him! We're gonna get the... He's running! He's running! We got a runner! He's not gonna make it though. Glaives is almost done. I'm gonna chrono boost out at about 6 adepts. So, I'm gonna get a robo to follow this up. And really what I'm trying to do is open up an opportunity to get a third base. I'm gonna get a third base after this next warp-in. And then the adepts should be going across the map. You want to do that as quickly as possible to force a response, is the idea. The adepts, they're not designed to kill him. They're designed to keep him off balance so I can get a good economy and deal with whatever he has, pretty much. Yeah. And if he didn't see it coming, well then I'm going to get more damage done. We kill some more drones. I'm going to jam these adepts in over here into this dirty positioning. Gonna get a little bit fancy with it as I send 2 adepts over to the low ground. Start immortals back at home. Getting more pylons as well. Gonna target down some of his drones here. Well, yeah, this is pretty critical damage. He's got some roaches now, but I'm starting blink. I'm getting more gas. I should be getting some more gates and a forge. Those are all the follow-ups. I'm building immortals. And you see here, even though he has roaches, he can't really move out until he clears all these up. So it's a big pain for him. 1 adept made it in. We'll see. It's going to die, but we'll see if it takes a few more drones with it. Now I have that immortal, which means any sort of counter push is going to be... should effectively be shut down. Get +1 started. And once I have blink finishing, I can get a warp prism next as well. I've got a few more gates on the way. I'm actually going to get a couple more in the main. Make sure I have an adept in the wall. But I'm up to 64 probes now, which is, I guarantee you, if he has 50 drones, I'd be impressed. But it's probably more like 40. So he has 2 choices. 1 is just try to do a big all-in. 2 is try to drone up. Both are nearly impossible for him right now. But we're gonna keep the pressure on with a follow-up attack here. And yes, Force Field can be broken by Corrosive Bile out of the Ravagers. But, he can't afford them right now. He has 2 Ravagers. 2 Ravagers. And we see he's going for Ravagers. That'll prompt a Robotics Bay in order to be able to get Disruptors, which are incredible against Ravagers because they have a large hitbox like your mother. And during this, I can get all this gas. We need some more pylons as well. And I'm going to get another base. So we can do the classic warping on one side, hit the other. Pretty simple. This should drag him away. Also, I got supply blocked like a noob. But it'll serve the purpose I need it to serve. As we move in on this side, where he has very little in the way of defenses. Do another big warp in here. And a big warp in into the main. I have the Robo Bay done. I have my robotics facility hotkeyed. I'm killing things over here. Oh, there's the bile actually landed. And GG. The 1-2. But yeah, after that early pressure, you can see the drone count. It dipped down. The entire point of that is to force him... Well, he has 2 choices when he goes for the 3 base. Either he makes units, which keeps him from making drones, because you can't make drones and units at the same time with the same larva. Or he doesn't make units and he takes damage and he loses drones. So the idea is if you hit that timing and you control well, you can limit the drone count so the normal Zerg style of just overwhelming you doesn't work anymore. They don't have the economy, they don't have the production. So the adepts are used to kind of keep them honest or punish them, depending on what they decide to do. As you can see, the resource collection, it's important as you're doing that because you're holding them at a certain level of tech and a certain level of economy. Getting the 3rd base is how you capitalize. You don't capitalize by just making more adepts behind it. It's really easy to get into that tunnel vision of, well, adepts are working, let's make some more adepts. But that's the wrong idea. You want to be transitioning into a mid-game tech. You want to make your army stronger instead of just making more of the same thing. Because if eventually he'll counter the adepts, he'll kill them. And then he'll have units that kill adepts. So getting the Robo, getting Blink, setting up your 3rd are the ways to capitalize on that. Now we have Terran versus Zerg. I'm actually going to go with a little bit of a different style. I'm not going to go with the bio. I'm going to go with the innovation style of mech, where you punch out a lot of... It's a similar style to the actual adept style of I just did as Protoss. Obviously, it's completely different in the units because I'm playing Terran and not Protoss, but the entire objective of what I'm about to do is to keep pressure on a Zerg player and keep them honest. If they don't make enough units, then I'm going to be able to punish them, maybe kill a 3rd base. If they do, then their unit count is lower and I can transition into my own 3rd pretty safely. I like these type of styles. It's a very popular way to play at the highest level, and that's how I'm going to be doing this game as well. So what's going to happen is I'm going to open up, going to have an SCV and a Reaper Scout, make sure he's not doing anything crazy early on, and then I'm going to be going into 2-factory Hellion Cyclone. Not necessarily Hellbat Cyclone, Hellion Cyclone. So I have the counter to Zerglings, and I have the counter to Roaches, both of which they are pretty much the only units they have access to early on. So what I'm going to do is if he takes a quick third and he doesn't make any roaches, then I just have so many Hellions I run him over. If he does, well, then I have the Cyclones to rip through them with their Tornado Blasters. And it's very important that I don't overcommit. I don't send the units into a fight that they're going to lose. You don't want to trade, you just want to keep laying on the pressure. Because your units get stronger in a larger group. And I sent this SCV off the barracks. The entire point of this SCV is not to get a super early scout. It's just to see if I need to leave the Reaper at home. Because if he goes for a spawning pool first, it looks like he's going for another base, actually. But the fact that this hatch is finished means he didn't go for a pool first, so. But I'm trying to see, because if I just wait till the Reaper comes out, and he went for a spawning pool first, then my Reaper's going to be on the other side of the map, and he might be able to sneak in and attack my command center and delay it, which obviously I do not want. We're going to try to get a little bit of damage. And we pick up a kill there. You don't want to overcommit, but he doesn't have a queen yet, so... And at this point, I'm just going to send the... It's not important to get kills with the Reaper. I almost lost the Reaper, by the way. That was pretty dangerous. I got caught in a mediocre position. But yeah, you keep them honest, but you don't... Sure, you'll see players like Beyond or Innovation. They're like, I'm going to micro the... This Reaper is going to have 300 APM just for it. No, it's not that important. Just keeping the Reaper alive and getting a basic scout of whether he has gas, if he's making a bunch of Zerglings, if there's a third base, that's what matters. You don't need 300 APM on the Reaper. Let's just put it that way. That's one of those things, like I was talking about how Terrans get really... They had tunnel vision. Because the Terran units are very microable. Like Hellions, like Reapers, Liberators, Banshees. It's very easy to get stuck just continually microing instead of macroing. You gotta micro your macro. That's the most important part. Gonna start building a wall down here as well. And I've got the double reactor using the ring around the add-ons here. Now that I have 4 Hellions, so it takes 3 Hellion hits to kill a Zergling. So that's why it's a bit risky to move out before you have 3 or 4 Hellions. Because you don't want to get surrounded. If it takes multiple volleys to kill the Zerglings, there's a better chance they'll close the distance. Let me poke up. Well, I'll take it. I am not complaining here. Okay, this is one of those situations where it's obvious he's just making drones, so I'm going to go in, make sure I'm microing my macro, and then go for the kills. Gotta try to target fire to line him up. This is one of the situations where it's worth it to tunnel vision a little. If you have that much of an opening, you take it. Even if it means, well, you got to have everything hockey. It's important to check before you go into a situation like that if you're going to be supply blocked. Because if you're not, then you can commit. But now he has roaches, but I've already started producing those cyclones. And we should be able to shred them. And obviously we did some pretty good economic damage there. You don't go Blue Flame with this because Blue Flame requires a tech lab. This is about building as many units as possible as quickly as possible. Having Blue Flame isn't important because you're just pretty much body blocking for the Cyclones. Also having a tech lab factory slows down your production significantly. The Hellions right here, now once the roaches are out, they just body block. That's their job. But this guy was incredibly greedy. But yeah, that's a good basic timing. You send that Overlord in around 3:30 against almost every race. Usually you don't send an OV in against Zerg, but against Protoss and against Terran, 3:30 is when they've committed to their tech. Alright, we're going to incorporate something because we're doing a Learn to Play StarCraft. Some of you might have seen my guides on YouTube. I'm probably going to put this on YouTube. But I'm incorporating a new element. Alright? Not only am I going to be playing games and showing you how to play, but I'm going to be looking at your games. I have replays from Silver, Gold, any of those level of players. And I'm going to take some of the ones sent in. I'm hopefully looking at the replays that aren't about, this is a ridiculous base trade I did with Planetary Fortresses. But instead, I'm Silver League and I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. And that's what we're going to be looking for here. So use the replays command for the email to send them in, winterreplays@gmail.com. I already have plenty of both varieties. Alright, here's a Silver League ZVT. We got here. And I'll be looking at both sides. I'll be talking about both players, not just one specifically. Because I'm sure they could both use improvement. I guarantee you that. But you know what, actually, I'm going to look at one side of this. It was sent in by the Zerg player, so we're going to watch the Zerg player specifically, see what he's doing. So now, right off the bat, it's important to prioritize your early game over being nice to the other person. Nice guys finish last, alright? So you want to move your Overlord before GLHFing. And right off the bat, I'm going to talk about Overlord positions before we even get into it. Against a Terran player, usually you want an Overlord. Now, this doesn't, not just for this map, it's general. You can use this in every matchup. Well, every versus Terran. But you can send an OV to the outside here, usually to be able to send in. That's your first OV. Your second OV usually goes towards the front, especially if there's a high ground, to be able to see if they're moving out. And then the third OV usually goes somewhere around a third base, or maybe where they'll send drops out or something like that. And then from there, you're putting OVs in positions where you can see medevacs coming in, attacks coming in, especially where you don't have potential watchtower control. Alright. Now we're going to go to Taco's vision here. Telling his race despite picking Zerg. So, what a guy. And he's got that Overlord on the way. We'll have to see what he decides to open up with. He's sending, I believe, the second Overlord to the middle. That's... Now, the problem with sending it to the middle is it's the most useless position on the map. But, remember, this is Silver League. Just moving your Overlords at all is important. Remember, you can actually take your units while they're in the egg, and you can set a rally point for them, by the way. So that's how players already have their units set up. You can do that later on with your army. You can hotkey it in before anything. That's a good hatchery timing as well, before the 1 minute mark, 17-18 supply. So nothing, no big issues there. Alright, and again, spool looks like pretty solid start. I'm trying to look at his vision specifically, so we can get a feel of what he's looking at, and maybe where he should be looking instead. It's not that important. Actually, against Terran, it's usually better to just put the spawning pool somewhere safe rather than have an area to wall off. Once again, it's not a big deal. But because Terran players, if they do a drop, or an attack, or a run-by or something, you don't want to have choke points that can be used against you. Okay, going for the third base this early, it's okay. Usually greedy. Also, once again, you got to prioritize having your drones mining. He's looking at 4 idle drones. I think he just controlled them there, but you want to prioritize having your drones mining over taking a third base super early in the game. Just FYI. So yeah, get those drones mining. You can use Control F1. That'll select all of the idle worker hotkey, by the way. That's for all races. The The Terran going with a scan at the 2-minute mark, that's, don't do that. That scan accomplished less than a single SCV scouting would. So, just pro tip to Terran players, do not scan at the 2-minute mark. Because they don't have any units, and you can just send an SCV. It's a lot cheaper, alright? Unless, of course, you contracted that that scan out, and your son has to get paid for his scan building company, in which case, go ahead, use that scan instead of sending an SCV out. Yeah, it's going to cost infinitely more, it's especially the mule that you could build, but okay, I understand, that's fine. So, right when you get that gas, right when you get 100 gas, you got to be thinking Zergling speed. Right off the bat, Zergling speed. But, yeah, there we go. He starts it up. And I would say don't worry very much about getting any other tech super, unless he's going to go for a Baneling bust. But so far, honestly, the basics are good. He's got his bases set up. He has control groups used. And he has overlords out on the map. I'd like to see some Zerglings just scouting, but he's creep spreading. He has a decent drone count. Honestly, the basics are there. I mean, he's not moving super fast around, but at this point, really what you're looking to do is make sure your opponent isn't just going to do, okay, don't go for a 4 base. 4 bases, no. Don't do it. Okay, don't do that, guys. Do, like, make a roach more, make an evo chamber, make 6 more drones. Don't make a 4th base. Don't do that. I don't know. It's not worth more. Like, at this point, when you take a 4th base when you get to around 50 drones. He's at 36 right now. The earliest you want to take it is, like, 45, maybe 45 drones. But usually it's better to just focus on infrastructure. Focus on getting your tech up and your drone count up before getting another base. Because you have another base, you have the larva, but you can't spend your money. Or you don't have enough money to spend on that larva to make units in general. Alright. So this is the point. He's sending out some Zerglings. He's not too bad off. He has an Overlord in the most obvious location to move out as well, so it's pretty well so far. Scouting in. And once again, he has all these control groups used, which is important. You gotta have that, just the basics. You might be like, well, I panic and I use the select army hockey. Well, that's why your units sometimes aren't where you need them to be. And a bit optimistic on that creep spread. Now here's the tunnel vision, guys. Look at the minerals. Neither player has much of an economy, but they're both still well over 500 minerals, and this is the micro your macro. If you gotta think, every 5 seconds, do something else. The 5-second rule. You've probably seen the video I did on it. But every 5 seconds, you should be... I'm just gonna count it off. Okay, so how long has he spent worrying about these Hellions? It's been 15, 20 seconds now. He's spreading his creep, and now he's making 30 more Zerglings, but he could have easily had another round of injects, another round of drones, but instead, his camera has been locked on dealing with these Hellions. If you just force yourself to look away, I guarantee you're going to be better off than if you do a little bit better micro against the Hellions. Oh yeah, now imagine if he had gotten these Evo chambers, a Roachmorn, all of that was done. And then he could just make 20 roaches with roach speed on the way and win the game. But instead, all of this is delayed because of that tunnel vision. He's doing a good job. The drone count, 48, pretty solid. And another way to tie things together is whenever you spread creep, whenever you make overlords, or whenever you inject your hatcheries, you think about doing the other 2 things. So you try to tie it all together. You just made some overlords, try to actively maybe go in a game against the AI and practice this. It's kind of a mental process, but I just spread creep, injects overlords. Oh, I just made overlords just finished, injects and creep. I just injected, Do I need overlords? And have I spread my creep? If you can tie all those together, it becomes easier to remember each of the things, because now it's like one thing instead of 3. It takes a while. Like, there's no easy trick besides remember to remember it. But maybe play some games against the AI and try to just focus on that. And then it becomes second nature. I don't think about it, but I do it. After thousands of games, obviously. It's a process. But yeah, once again, he's struggling to spend his money, which is why the focus on injects is so important. He actually has the larva. At this point, it's just a micro your macro type of situation. Is the biggest mistake. He's got the spine crawlers. He's got to focus on creep spread. He has all the bases here. He has what he needs. He's got the mechanic. He's not, like, trying to go up to 2-base spire. So, obviously, he needs to micro his macro now. But, overall, the framework is there. It needs a lot of polish. There needs to be a lot of polish here. But, the framework is there. You don't need to rebuild this foundation, is what I'm trying to say. Some players, if they've gotten to gold, and, I mean, it's impressive, but if they've gotten to gold and all they know how to do is, like, a 1-base roach build, well, then they don't have the framework. They're going to have to rebuild a foundation because they don't have one. If they want to get to Platinum or Diamond, they want to actually play games that involve 3 bases, and players now won't die to a 1-base roach build. But this player, he has all the foundations here. This honestly just comes down to more practice. He has control groups, he has creep spread, he has overlord spread, he has decent injects, and he expands. Like, he's doing everything right. He's not doing it great, but he's doing it right. Yeah, so he has 2,700 minerals. He doesn't have much gas, but I have to reiterate, these are all the things you need to be doing. It's just, over time, you got to be doing them quicker. So, it's actually a very good foundation here. And we should see from here, it appears he already has much better macro than the gold player he's playing. If he could just spend his money, he would win the game right now. But I'm going to skip forward because we've gotten past the point. He's making 11 overlords. That might be a bit much, but he has the money. But we've gotten past the point where I can give useful tips or analysis, because I've seen everything I needed to see. He's got to focus on tech. He's got to focus on expanding. I'm not saying he's got to. He has a focus, rather. That's what I mean. He has multiple control groups, so everything is there. At this point, he's doing the thing a lot of lower level players will do. They never scout. You never scout your opponent, so you don't know that you could just walk over and win the game. So here's a trick. Every 1 minute, look at the minute marker. Well, okay, we'll make it easier. Every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes. Every even number of minutes, you do something. You throw a roach at him. You send an overlord. You send a zergling. You find some way to scout your opponent every 2 minutes, as every race. And if you can that's another mental thing. Every 5 seconds trying to move, larva injects, creep overlords. And every 2 minutes, every even number of minutes, you send something. Doesn't matter what it is. You just get some sort of vision on their armor. And yeah, neural parasite. But yeah. Honestly, you don't need to focus on harass. I've been doing these builds. Obviously, I'm playing at a higher level than silver right now, but not too high a level. You don't need to focus on harass. It's important to have an idea of harass, but if the reason you think you're not ranking up is because you don't have good enough adept control, and you're not masters already, well, you're wrong. Because you could be making mass charge launch and still be winning games in Diamond easily. As long as you focused on everything else. As long as you didn't get supply blocks, you took your expansions at the right time, you have basic defenses and good pylon placements. Like, that's why you can make whatever fucking unit you want. It's easier if you make adepts, but the reason you're not moving up is not because your adept control isn't quite where it needs to be. Alright, let's just make that... let's dispel with the rumor that matters. Alright. Back to me playing. No diamond is going to lose to a zealot mass attack. You are very wrong. I have done mass attacks in Grandmaster, and they still work. It's all about execution. Anything can work. Now, I'm not saying you should try to be creative and rewrite the Prima strategy guide, okay? You should be making adepts instead of zealots 90% of the time. But if your focus is more on the little things instead of the bigger picture, you're going to get lost in the trees. Alright. And now, as a matter of principle, I am going to go mass zealots in this game. I do not recommend you do this, but I'm going to show, as a matter of principle, how to do it. And the things I'm focusing on outside of what I'm doing. Easy for you. What? How is he playing at a disadvantage? I'm not even going to go down this road. I'm not going to engage him on this point. I don't... You can only fit 5 SCVs in. He's telling me his life story, so where are the barracks out on the map? He's cheesing me, 100%. Also, this is a mind game. I bet he says that every game. He's like, and then, yeah, you don't think he's gonna have 4 barracks in the middle of the map pumping out Marines, but damn right he is. Alright, so we're not cutting any corners here. We're gonna have a nice, well-rounded build. Wait. Well-rounded would imply all of the corners were cut. You know, how do not cutting corners and well-rounded mean pretty much the same thing, but completely contradict each other? Isn't the English language beautiful? I'm blowing my own mind right now. These are the real questions. And while mass zealot, once again, I'm not gonna intentionally. I'm gonna go for unit composition, which is not ideal. Mass zealots is not ideal. It's not usually the best choice in almost any situation. But I'm not just gonna make zealots as a matter of principle. That's dumb. That's a dumb thing to do. So I'm gonna open up with the adept. Is he gonna bring a Reaper back? If I can delay this, God. And I'm gonna go for Robo first, because I think the best way to do this, to be able to get charged early on, well, also I need to protect myself. But the best way to do this is to maybe do a Warp Prism drop, do a little bit of harass, and see where the night takes us. And that Warp Prism drop will be of adepts. I'm killing the SCV. I hate Reapers. Who doesn't, though? Get the Warp Prism. And then I'm going to need, behind it, an Observer. Yeah, he has 2 Widow Mines here, so obviously we're going to need that Observer. Get the Twilight here. Now we have to try to figure out where he's going to I have pylons already set up. I think he's going to try to be sneaky and come in this side.
Your dedication will be
I'm going to get some stalkers lined up. Thank you for that sub. Welcome back, by the way. I got to be quick on the draw to deal with the mine drop. I've got the Twilight Council on the way here. Do a little bit of fancy micro with that pickup range. Oh, big damage. I just lost my observer there, so that wasn't ideal. On the bright side, I'm killing a lot on this side. Mother of fuck! Well, I lost a lot of probes there, but he's losing a lot more SCVs. I really suck against mine drops. Like, ever since Widow Mines became a thing, at the start of Heart of the Swarm, I've sucked against mine drops. Like, but fortunately, well, I've started Charge and I have yet to make a single Zealot. I'm pretty sure I'm okay on the damage here. So at this point, I've already done pretty much critical damage. So I'm just gonna target down SCVs individually here, because Cyclones don't deal with this very quickly. But this is an example. Like, I can just go charge right now and that's fine. You might be like, well, you went for adepts. Yeah, and with good execution, just a few units can pretty much win you the game. Like the Widow Mines, if I hadn't done anything with the adepts, he'd be way ahead with the Widow Mine drop because I completely botched it. But I'm fine now. I've always sucked against Widow Mine drops. Oh my god, I've always been so bad. Now here is the problem with this. Is now you do have to make stalkers at some point. I'm gonna keep the Widow Mine over here. I mean, I'm gonna keep the Mothership Core on the other side. I think I have charge done now, yeah? There you go. I should be able to overcharge. It does connect. There you go. GG. I did make charge though. That wasn't a great example.
dedication will be rewarded.
But it happened. Just basic defense is enough with a little bit of harass. Thank you, Max Timbo, for the sub as well as 405 Undead Person. Welcome back 4 months in a row. Yeah, the Mass Zealots really clutched it there, didn't they? But yeah, the worker count, that was just the early game there. Once again, just having a solid early... No! Don't look at it. It's embarrassing. Ah! It's bleeding. Which of these three do you like the most? I like from the images. I like Waterworks the most. I actually let me zoom in. I think Scarlet Moon's pretty cool, but I like my clean maps with the clean tile sets. A government racket. Oh, this guy's a beast.
Make the ground shake.
All right. We're gonna go back to real builds for real pro gamers. Builds that tried and true, not too difficult to execute, and are safe in almost every scenario. This is supposed to be educational, not proving that I can go Mass Zealot and Diamond, okay? I'm already confident of that. Thank you, Liquid Asylum, for that sub as well. And since he's Zerg, I don't need to scout all the way in because I would see the edge of the creep as well. I'm going to be going for the one gate expand, which is probably one of the safest ways to go about things. Especially, like, on this map, you have a pretty small, I guess, front. Not really ramp, because there's no ramp up to it, but... so it makes it a little bit safer to go on the low ground. It's not like Newkirk, where you have that wide open area. I'm scouting him last, so there's that small possibility that he went for a really early pool, and he just comes in and kills my pylon. There's that small possibility that I could just outright, you know what, I'm going to get rid of that possibility, I'm going to make a Zealot so I don't just lose the game. I usually wouldn't make that Zealot. I usually would try to save that little bit of money, get my pylon quicker, get a couple more probes quicker, but there is the small chance that he just did a spawning pull first and I didn't see it because I scouted him last. He doesn't have that. He has an expansion done, so I can cancel the Zealot. He does have gas mining. We saw the drones mining gas. But he doesn't have speed started yet because we saw the spawning pool not yet researched. So I've got the beat on everything here. I'm going to finish this up. I'm going to get a mothership core out of the expansion. And then we're going to work on getting additional gates. I can just get them. Alright, these, just to keep them honest, is pretty much the point. Gonna overcharge, kill the Ovi. I think it should be enough. You can't run from heaven. And I'm hotkeying my adept separately. Get the chrono boost on the warp gate, as well as the resonating glaives out of that Twilight Council, which is what I'm starting now. I might have gone a bit too deep here. Do a little bit of fancy harasses. If I kill 3 drones, that's worth it on top of the scout. We already saw he has a solid chunk of drones. I mean, you can already, like, based on how many drones he had at that second base. I don't even need to see if he has a third. I should have looked for whether he had a third, but based on the amount of drones he had at the base, I also didn't see any other gas. I didn't see a roach warren. I didn't see a baneling nest. I didn't see a bunch of zerglings. So I'm reasonably sure that I'm safe to put on pressure rather than have to defend. That's the situation right now. So I'm going to do that same thing with the adepts. Going to get a robo to back it up. You could go Stargate. You could just go for more gates as a follow-up, but the robo's probably the safest and easiest option after that. He does not have Zergling speed. That's something to point out. Alright. 6 or 7 adepts completed. Gonna go down to this base. We're gonna start the Nexus and a pylon, because I'm gonna be supply blocked in a moment anyways. Move my mothership core back to a relevant location. And jam myself up in there. He does have roaches, but he doesn't have that many right now. I gotta be very careful, and we're gonna start immortal production right off the bat. He doesn't have a lair yet, so that's very important. I'm using my glaives as quickly as possible. We're gonna get Blink to follow up. I'm just keeping him busy here, pretty much, is the plan. Remember, the Adepts, their job is to essentially just keep him busy. They don't necessarily need to get a ton of kills. Every second he's on that side of the map, he's not on mine. It's very, I mean, it's obvious, but it's very simple. I need to buy time for the Immortal to finish, get some more sentries out, add on some gates. I should actually have the gases on the low ground there. And I got a little bit into the harass. I didn't really need to do that. That's not that necessary as long as you just keep the Adepts alive. This Adept survived. I'm not entirely sure how that happened, but I've got my camera location set up on each base. And he's still got all these guys at home. Get the Robo Bay, because it looks like this is a game where we're going to be needing disruptors. Or at least wanting disruptors. I'm going to get a Warp Prism here, because a lot of the power of the Protoss army comes from being able to drag your opponent into a better position. If you're just sitting back at home constantly, doing nothing else but sitting back, well, you have no way to really force them into a position where you can fight. If you just sit back, you play defensive, you wait for his roaches to show up, well then, eventually they'll show up and you won't be able to do anything about it. I'm going to send the Warp Prism around. I already assume he has a third base on that other side. I don't know for a fact, but it's a reasonable assumption. I'm going to scout and see if he has... The danger here is a mutalist transition, because now I've invested so much in the robotics that if he goes mutas, well, nothing that comes out of the robo shoots up. So that's a problem. We see an evolution chamber. I've scattered pretty much everything here. And a metric fuck ton of drones over here. That's Changeling. You can just right-click it and get rid of it. Take it out behind the woodshed. I'm gonna go clear up some creep. We're gonna get the Templar Archives for Archons as well. And right now I'm busy just... Those guys trapped in there, you idiots. I've got the Disruptor. Okay, it's very important here to get counter damage done. Like I said, remember? If you're just sitting back, you're letting them do whatever they want. So, let's not do that. And I can eviscerate this mineral line in just a couple seconds. Now I've forced the issue. Now I either force him back or I force him forward, but he has to decide which one it's gonna be. And both are kind of bad options for him. Here's, he needs to try to adapt to the situation. And meanwhile, I'm building up. I can make Archons now. And that War Prism just opened up that one timing that he might have been dangerous, where he has all those Ravagers and everything else. The War Prism completely shut it down, because he eventually just had to come back. He had no option. You want to remove the choice You want him to do what you want him to do, and not what he wants to do. We have the Dream Raptors. I have them on a different control group. That's pretty damn important. We're gonna do some fishing here. What do we got up here? My disruptor is dying for no reason because I'm bad. So, I got a nice hit, but then I proceeded to screw it up by losing all the disruptors for no reason. That wasn't good. So you gotta be careful about that. Let's go kill some of these drones. But at this point, I just have everything I need. Gonna get into the warp prism there. I usually like to put my warp prism on 6. 6 is a little bit difficult for me to hit because I got those tiny ass nerd hands. But it's definitely not like impossible. So it makes it a little bit easier. Disruptors are pretty good. And yeah, the Roach Ravager, it chunks up. They're not very fast. They're clunky. They don't move very quickly. They can't avoid the, especially off a creep, they can't really avoid the disruptor shots reasonably well. How's the Zerg supposed to defend against the disruptors? It's not about the disruptors. It's not about the disruptors. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Because that game boiled down to... I'll answer your question. But that... Thank you, Cloudy, for the sub. But that game wasn't about the disruptors. It was about what led up to it. It was about him taking too much damage to the adepts because he didn't quite have a scout and he didn't have units prepared. And then me hitting the warp prism at the right time. Honestly, I didn't need to make disruptors. I could have made, once again, 24 charge lance, and that would have been okay as well. But disruptors in general, almost anything but Roach Ravager is better. Roach Hydra is better, but it's not by much. Zerglings and Banelings, Mutalisks, just hitting from 2 different angles. Anything but one big clump, one ball getting hit by a death ball. Any units like Roaches and Ravagers that clump up with large hitboxes, pretty much any other unit is better. Even Swarm Hosts, like... But obviously I went Disruptors because I saw he was going to be committed to that Roach tech. When you saw that he is not going pull first, you cancel the Zealot. If he would make those Zerglings first, would the single Zealot make a difference? Well, the reason you make a Zealot against a pull first is because you have nothing to keep the Zerglings from getting in. You don't want to hard wall off with the Pylon, because then you can't get out of your own base, and you have to kill your own Pylon later on. So the Zealot isn't there to kill the Zerglings, it's to prevent them from getting into your base and just being incredibly annoying, if not game-ending. So the Zealot is just a stopgap. The literal definition of a stopgap. Because it stops the Zerglings from going through the gap. Alright. Another Zerg. So this game, I'm not going to go for that mech style. I'm going to go for the standard bio. This map is a bit larger. There's a possibility that he is in cross positions, in which case it takes a long while to get across the map. And instead of that being making it more difficult for me, I want to use that to my advantage. So I'm going to do the 2-1-1, the double medevac drop timing, where you get 2 medevacs as stim marines landing near their base around the 5:15 mark if you're on point. Beyond an innovation, they get it by like 5 minutes, but we're going to assume we're not as good as them. Alright. So I'm going to be going for the Reaper. I sent the SCV scout out just to get a bead. Now it's a 4-player map, which means there's a lot of areas to check. And there's a bit of a risk, like once again, if he does go pull first, then I'm going to be exposed by a bit. But there's no really avoiding it. The Reaper should be able to deal with anything but a full-on 1 base. So, as long as I'm in position. And I'm going to get my second barracks before getting my second depot. You don't need to get that second depot. It doesn't serve any purpose quite yet. I still have a little bit of time before I'm going to be supply blocked. So getting that second barracks allows me to get more production up. And production on time is the most important way, and the best thing to do to improve this Terran is to focus on getting your production in a timely manner. Because that's the most common mistake Terran players make at the mid-levels, I guess, is just delaying their production for way too long. I don't mean like 20 seconds, I mean sometimes minutes. And that's why they don't have enough units to deal with a Zerg who just makes Zerglings. That's why they don't have enough units to deal with a bunch of Blinkstalkers, because that production did not come up in time. I've got the Reaper. I already saw he expanded, and he's getting a 3rd base. So this means no really quick Baneling bust or anything like that. I'm bringing my Marines to the top of the ramp because this way maybe I can reduce the surface. If you happen to slip a bunch of Zerglings out, then I have a bit of a better angle than if I'm just standing right out at the front. We got the Marines finishing. I'm going in. We see he's committing to creep. We go do a once around. He's getting a second gas. This looks like all the check marks for a full-on macro build here are being hit. Now I'm going to work on, well, I need depots, and I want to build a wall at the front. So 2 birds here. Alright, and we're going to switch these over and immediately go for that double medevac. I'm going to start a reactor on this side. Can get another... Actually, I'm going to get this to be the engineering bay, because I'm going to want +1. It's a pretty important upgrade. I can't afford it yet because the real focus is just on getting these medevacs out here. But make sure I don't get supply blocked. So the most important thing to do before you go out with a drop like this is to make sure you have everything. Like right now, okay, I'm ignoring the drop. I'm making sure I have all my infrastructure at home. I have depots on the way. I have my gas mining. I'm ignoring the drop for now because there's literally nothing he can do to kill it. So, I'm going to deal with this. Boost one more time. I've got my medevacs on a separate hotkey. And I'm going to drop right out the edge because you want to have those finished. I'm going to start my combat shields there. And now I'm going to spend the next 10 seconds or so microing this drop. Let's get as much damage done as possible. Killing all these drones. And now I'm going to get into a nice position, and I'm going to go focus back at home again. Because I have the follow-up coming out. We got a Widow Mine. I can drop this in here. And behind this, I want another CC. Once again, we're doing a little bit of a macro focus here. And just a split second before I go in again, I'm going to have this drop coming up. I'm going to drop in the main at the same time. Going to drop the Widow Mine out by clicking on it individually. This should keep them distracted for a second while I come in with this one. Hit both sides simultaneously. Pick up, get out. Oh, this medevac has got more damage done. Get into a nice position. Now I'm back at home. I'm using both my camera location hotkeys and my production hotkeys to jump back home and make sure I'm doing everything I need to be doing there. But I've got the third base on the way. Oh, I think I dropped on some Banes, but that's fine. I'm just going to put these in one medevac. Going to send the other medevac home. Now we get an armory and another engineering bay. I've got a third base. I've got all my production coming up as well, so I can finally spend my money. I've got 51 SCVs, and I guarantee you that's more than the drones he has. He does have a Spire done. That's part of the reason he didn't have very many units. But the best defense against a Spire is a good offense, so I'm going to start moving out here. I've obviously already done pretty much critical damage. There's very little chance that he'll come back from this. But there's no reason to sit back now. A reason to sit back would be if he already had mutas on my side of the map, but the most annoying thing about mutas is when they're on your side of the map. So I'm just going to try to cut that off entirely. He's obviously not in a productive mindset right now. Unfortunately, the only thing he's progressing in his name is in name. Something, you know, that could have been... I could have had much better execution on that joke. Widowmine's burrow. Yeah, he doesn't have detection here, so... Let's bring another round in. And if the mines are allowed to trigger more than once, that's already incredibly good for you. So. But yeah. Now, let's assume, let's just do... I did a lot of damage with the first drop. I got it on point. Remember, I was trying to talk through what I'm focusing on what time. Like, I'm delegating certain spans of time to micro and to macro. You want to have an active focus on that, because once again, the biggest mistake Terran players make is they tunnel vision. You want to go in saying, I don't just do this drop, I delegate, I designate 10 seconds. Okay, I'm making sure everything's ready at home before I micro this drop and get in that habit. I get my depots started, I get another command center started, I start an upgrade, and then I say, okay, 10 seconds, that's it, we'll see what we got, and then we'll get into a nice position and go back home. That's important, especially for Terran, for all races, but especially for Terran because of how it works and how important it is not to get supply blocked and not to miss production. Not to miss production cycles, because that's just how you end up with not nearly enough units. If I don't make units for a minute, then suddenly he eventually cleans that up, and then he has 9 Mutalisks, and I'm just now restarting Marines. Do you mind checking the last replay I sent you? I don't check every replay. I have over 100 in the inbox. I just pick from the ones I have at the appropriate time, so just FYI. Alright, with this, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back just a couple minutes. I'll let you guys... I'm going to spend a couple minutes when I get back talking about one of these things you guys vote for. I'm going to spend time explaining for all the races one of these 3 topics. And I'm going to go into it as each race, spend 3 or 4 minutes just breaking it down. So remember, if you're subbed, your vote counts for 3 times as much. But thank you guys for watching. I'll be right back just one moment. Alright, looks like we have something of a consensus. Okay, early game scouting and what to look for. That's a good one. I mean, they're all good ones. That's how I put them up there, right? Alright, so we're going to break it down just in general. It's non-specific as to race, by the way. We're just going to talk about the things you can look for if they're Protoss, they're Terran, or Zerg. The first one is, alright, here's a general baseline. If you have no idea what you're doing in scouting, send a worker out at 1 minute. Doesn't matter if you're Terran, you're Protoss, you're Zerg. 1 minute, send that worker out. If it's a 4-player map, send it out at 45 seconds. But 1 minute, you're going to send that worker across. That worker is going to get there somewhere around 1:30 or 1:40. So what you're going to see is if they're building early buildings, maybe if they're Zerg, if they're expanding, or even if they're the other races. So what you need to look for, thank you, what you need to look for
Love this
is,
Team Winter, keep it up. Less
one,
than 3.
what are their buildings and where are they? Do they have a barracks at the top of the ramp? Do they have a gateway or a forge? If they have no buildings, or if they don't have any production buildings or expansions, well, they're proxying you. Or they're brain dead. Take your pick. Bronze League, you never know. But you have to assume they're doing something aggressive. So if you check their base, there's no barracks, there's no gate, there's no forge, there's no hatch or spawning pool. Then they're proxying you, and you need to prepare defenses. You don't need to expand, you don't need to tech up, you just need to get, like, a zealot out, you get some zerglings and a spine crawler, you get a bunker, you get those things. Now going into a little bit more detail. Now, are they expanding? By the 2-minute mark, maybe about 2:30, most players, if they're going to commit to an early expand, like a one-building expand, like a one-racks expand, a one-gate expand, which is a pretty standard play, then you know that, and then you can take that into account. If they're expanding very early, you don't need a bunker right off the bat. You don't need to get cannons up. You don't need a spine crawler. You don't need it yet. Maybe a little bit later on you can get it, but you don't need it if they are expanding. They've just spent 300 to 400 minerals on a base. They're not going to be able to attack you in any reasonable form, so you can expand yourself, and I recommend you do. Now, another thing to look for are gas geysers. If they have one, or if they have two, or if they have none. And you just got to think about, just as a general rule for all the races, if they have one gas geyser and one production building, well, they're probably looking to expand. If they have two gas geysers, especially as Terran and Protoss, they're looking to tech up and do a strong attack. With Terran, this usually means they're going to do something like a siege tank push or cloaked banshees. They're going to do something that involves a lot of tech. So you got to prepare for that, which means you're probably going to need some tech yourself, whatever that is, whatever race you're playing. If it's Zerg and they have double gas and then an expansion, they're probably bad, so just out-macro them. Unless they're going to do like a 1.5 base Rabbit, it's just play safe in that case. So past that, if they don't have any gas and they don't have an expansion, just try to keep track of how many production facilities. Like if they have 2 gates or 2 barracks or a roach warren early, you're going to need to prepare extra defenses. But the best way to get ahead, by the way, is not to match them. You don't want to match them. If your opponent is going for a really quick roach push, or if they're going for a bunch of stalkers, you don't want to be like, well, I'm going to make 3 bunkers to defend. No. What you want to do is you want to take one step past them, so when you defend, you have the ability to counterattack, or you just have a better economy. So this means, if they look like they're going to go for early pressure, they have multiple production facilities or heavy tech, you want to, say, you're a Terran player up against a Protoss who has 2-3 gateways. Well, you want a siege tank, and maybe you want a medevac. You don't want more barracks and bunkers, because that siege tank is a force multiplier. It allows you to do more with less, and over time, it's going to be more effective than the Stalkers. If you're a Zerg player, you want to get Zergling speed and maybe a couple more Queens. Just a general rule, if you're a Zerg player, more Queens. When in doubt, more Queens. They do everything. They defend against basic ground units. They have great anti-air attack. They spread creep. They have a ton of health. They only cost minerals. There's what's not to love. Alright? So, when in doubt, more Queens. And as a Protoss, the best way is making your tech choice as early as possible. The worst thing a Protoss player can do early on, well, not early on, the worst thing a Protoss player can do when they're deciding on their choices, you don't want to just have, like, 3 gateways. It's better to have 2 gates and a Robo, or a Stargate. Just anything else. Because if they're just going for a basic attack or a basic pressure, you take a step above on the tech tree, and then you're looking down on them. Just like you're going to be looking down on their ladder points after they lose them to you, because you're going to be better, and they are not, because they don't know what they're doing. They didn't watch my guides, and you just did. So that's early scouting and responses. Hopefully that helps you guys out. Let's get back to the games. Alright. We might cover the other topics. I think I'll cover the other topics by the end of this. I'm going to be doing about another hour. Will this stream be uploaded to YouTube? Yeah. I'm planning every 2 or 3 months. Some of you might have seen my 2.5 hour learn to play. And I think I know people want... I know there's a lot of demand for like build order guides, and like step-by-step hand-holding type of style, but that's not my style. I think the best way to improve overall is, even if you want to play Protoss, watch me play some Terran, or watch Terran, so that way you understand what the weaknesses of Terran are. Like, maybe you didn't know that Terran players can't really move out with medevacs before 5 minutes. Like, it's just not reasonable. You were scared that they were gonna get medevacs in your base, so you built a turret at the 2-minute, or you built a cannon at the 2-minute mark. It's like, you don't need that. So. They did it. But yeah, so that's going to be my focus. Also, it is my most popular video since it came out overall, and the amount of time that you guys have watched. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for being a part of that. But it's a 2.5-hour long video, and the average person who opened it up watched for 40 minutes, which is actually pretty ridiculous when you consider the average length of a YouTube video. So, that's pretty legit. I can't even sit down and watch things for 40 minutes, so I... Alright, so we're in Protoss versus... I'm going to try to... I will walk through that scouting again, just to kind of double down with a real game example. So I'm sending out that worker. I usually send it out the gate. You can send it at 1 minute. You'll get most of the same information. That's fine. But I usually have my scouting worker on a different hotkey, so I can just jump to it very quickly. Because obviously I'm doing things back at home as well. Well, if you were going to put a building anywhere on the map, this is the wrong place. This is not where you want to put it. You want to put it almost literally anywhere else. Like, because this is directly in the path of my scouting probe. So, yeah, you don't want to do that. So I'm just going to do 2 gates here. This is just to put on a little bit of pressure. He will finish the barracks, but... Because I suspect he might have another barracks as well. He's making a factory now. But, yeah. So I'm going to do a little bit of pressure. With something like this, putting on pressure is obviously a great option. So, I'm going to get a stalker to start out. He's pretty obviously not that interested in expanding, based on the fact he built a barracks and a factory, and the barracks is in a random location on the map, so. But the stalkers are pretty solid. Now, the danger is if he gets a cyclone right off the bat, but... I want this pylon! Got it, nice. See if we can get some juicy kills there. Come on, get that shot off. I killed the Reaper. We gotta get a mothership core here.
Nice breakdown. Anything to mention regarding 4-player?
You just scout early.
Early scouting?
Pretty much. Simply, you just scout earlier. That's it. Instead of a minute, 40 seconds or 30 seconds or just a little bit earlier. There's still a chance you'll end up scouting later just because of the nature of 4-player maps, but... Does he still have that barracks there? No, he lifted it. I'm going to get a couple of depths here, because if he does make a cyclone, I want basic defense, and I committed to that robo early on, which is important to do. See what's up here. I'll be quick if there's a Widow Mine. I'm trying to get my mothership core across the map. We'll see if that works out. But this is just to put on a bit of pressure. He's obviously not expanded yet. So, because I'm killing his expo right now. I have the warp gate. I'm getting observers. I should be able to get the expo. Canceled there. That was a little bit of fanciness, but delaying that expo is actually huge for me. And we can continue to lay the pressure on here. Nope, we can't. He's going to force out one more overcharge, pretty much. I'm going to have to send it home. We send it home now. I'm going to get an Immortal out, because an Immortal will... Yeah, they do extra damage to armor, the Cyclones, that is, but... Oh, I have 2 observers now. Don't you think that's overkill? Yes, I do. He has an expansion in the main, but... I'm going to get my Twilight Council now. That's just the safe option. Yeah, 4 Cyclones. That could be a bit dicey. I'm going to make sure I have the pylons up. I'm going to have an Immortal done, though, by the time the Cyclones arrive and the Mothership Core is back home, so... I'm not going to show him the Immortal. It should be in the scan, right? But now I have pretty much full vision of anything he's trying to do. Guardian Shield really messes with Cyclone damage because it reduces that range damage so dramatically. GG. But yeah, that early scouting got me all the information I needed to shut it down. I can never love. Just like you, just like you. It's the same guy. I'm Zerg this time. This guy's very polite. Now I'm sending my overlords out. My first overlord is going to go towards that front. The second overlord I actually like to put around here because this map is a little bit weird with the overlord spawns. Just like you. I'm going down for the hatch. Usually you send your drone down right around 200 minerals. It'll get there right with 300. But I'm going to do the... Now, you do have to take into account the map a little bit when you choose what unit composition you want to lean towards as a Zerg player. You can't always... Sometimes, like, if they're going for Hellbats, you need to have Roaches. You can go Lingbane, but it's unreliable. It's better to just get Roaches. And I subscribe to the idea. I am a follower of the Church of Snoot, okay? And the Church of Snoot is a monarchy where we put all our faith into the queens. So just getting 4, 5, 6 queens early on is the best defense against pretty much everything Terran can throw at you, besides like a direct big bio attack. That's the only thing that queens are not good against. But everything factory and starport related, they're great. So if he's not doing that direct like 3, 4 barracks bio attack with Marines and Marauders, well then we got the queens. If he is, well, we get some Lingbane. This is smart. He's sending his Overlord out to try to snipe the Ovies. I'm just going to put it up here. Is that... What? He can still... He can't see it, right? No, he cannot. Okay, good. That's exactly what we wanted. We got the queens done. You see an expansion. We'll see what he has at the top of the ramp. It looks like this is actually going to be a bio attack. So, that has a reactor. So, we're going to be less reliant on the queens than usual because he has 2 barracks and a reactored factory. So that means we do need to tend a little bit more towards the units rather than the queens. I mean, queens are obviously units, but it's going to have a little bit more punch on the ground than the queens can necessarily handle. So, I'm sending out my overlords in order to get information on all the angles here. I'm making sure I have creep between my bases. That's very important to get started on as quickly as possible. And right around that 4-minute mark, I'm going to drop down the Evo chambers. I'm going to go back to a full 3 in gas, and I want to try to get these upgrades on the way. But there's still a bit of a window. You got to think about, yes, he's upgrading now, but is there a major danger? Usually I would not build the Baneling Nest before the upgrades. You try to be a little bit greedier. You try to get as much money into drones as possible, but in this case, because of what he's doing, I'm getting the Baneling Nest. Get that attack upgrade. Just a few more drones. What are we at now? 40? And a 3rd base. I'm feeling like I need to start making units pretty soon here. I've got my creep spread queens hotkeyed. I have my camera locations for everything else, if you see here. I have them set to F2 through F5 are my camera location hotkeys. I found those to be the most convenient. Also, I need to get some more Ovies and spread them out here, as well as making these Zerglings, because I expect them to move out relatively soon. I've got the 1-1 on the way. There's no reason to speed up to layer. It's better to get those upgrades started because they take a lot longer than the layer takes to build. So, as I spread my creep out. Now that I finally have all this, I have vision of where he could move out from unless he's incredibly sneaky. There's a single medevac. I think he might try to send another medevac over on the left side, so... And I have my queens already there, that's the beauty. Of having those queens early. And we can get another base as well. So we shut down any early pressure. He's going for this OV. I checked his upgrades there. He doesn't have any. So now we're just continuing to expand. When you're ahead, get more ahead. I've got the layer done. We can get Baneling speed as well. I'm going to drop some creep at his 3rd. I'm going to make some Banelings here. Make sure these rocks are down so it doesn't become a nasty choke point for me to get through. We're up to 56 drones. That's not quite a game-winning number. I'm supply blocked now as well, which is pretty bad. You don't want to be supply blocked at this timing, ideally, but gonna get a macro hatch in the main as well, so I'm gonna start having plenty of money. Try to trigger some little mines here. Now manually controlling Okay, he killed that, but at what cost? We got the carapace upgrades.
받아들일 수 없는 명령인 군단이 진화했음. 광물 더 필요하지.
But yeah, going for that base for those units. I don't need a 4th base right now. I'd like one, but there's no need. He doesn't have a 3rd. I'll give up my 4th for his army. If we're 3 base versus 3 base, I won't give up my 3rd for his army. If we're 2 base versus 3 base, then I probably would rather have a 3rd. But in this scenario, with it was 3 bases versus 2, well, I'll give it up.
군단 병력이 광안에 쏟아짐.
Gonna get that. Spread a couple obies out here, shift clicking them off.
광맥 소진됨. 받아들일 수
But I do have Bane speed done here. And my finisher will be going to Hive. Now, because I'm going to be attacking a lot on the left-hand side, I'm going to get some basic defense in the form of spine crawlers. Yeah, it's probably overdoing it. Like, I probably don't need that many spines. But why not? And also, burrow infestors are pretty damn good. But that's just to defend 1 or 2 medevacs. I obviously don't need to have all my units over there, but I'm splitting off some Banes to do counterattacks as well. We get the Hive. Gonna get pathogen glands and burrow as well. We're at 66 drones. I'm gonna go get a few more. Ooh, being very sneaky here. Oh, it's a planetary. Unfortunately. And I'm gonna get a Spire. I guess we'll go to Greater Spire instead. That planetary is going to make things more difficult for me. I mean, not necessarily unwinnable at all, but the Spire is necessary now because he's making liberators. He's turtled up. This is a Turtle Terran now. So, it's going to take a bit longer.
군단 병력이 공격받고 있음. 변이
We're going to get this base.
진화.
He has 1-1. I'm going to have superior upgrades.
군단 병력이 공격받고 있음. 대군주.
Almost ready to get that Hive tech started.
진화했음.
And the Spire is a few seconds out as well. Remember, Corruptors are pretty damn good
수 없는 명령임.
at anti-air, let alone going into a Greater Spire. He's shifting over here. I'm going to set up a lane counterattack.
군단 병력이 공격받고 있음.
We're going to start that Greater Spire immediately.
대군주 더 필요하다.
Going to get the adrenal glands as well. The Zerglings, he doesn't have the 2-2. So, I'm starting the 3-3 here. Got one of these. Now, he already stemmed his army pretty juicily there, and he's still pretty far off hitting anything that matters to me, like... is the situation right now. I'm going to transfer some of the drones over here. Get another... because if I somehow botch this completely, and I have to take that other base, then I want to just be able to transfer my drones. I don't want to worry. Pretty much. I'm going to have a bit of a set of units to cut this off over here. Just going to cut off reinforcements and the like. Getting all the gas here. He's stemming all over the place. Pretty juicy one. He's still got this army up here. But I don't need to kill him outright. Like, yeah, he keeps going up here. Like, there's no reason to commit. I can eventually break this area. I'm gonna get some nice juicy banes in the middle. Unfortunately, didn't work out. We're gonna clear up these libs here. Unfortunately, this just now finished up. But yeah, we're just sitting back. The biggest mistake you can make at this stage as a Zerg player is just overcommitting. Like, you don't need to. There's no reason you have to. You just eventually work on getting the Broodlords. Eventually you can put an army together. I don't need to yet, though. I have plenty of bases. And against Greater Spire is pretty damn good. Against Widow Mines, just in general. Because the Widow Mines will get some fungals in there. Bring these in. We've also got the Zergling. What are you guys doing? I've killed this command center here. But yeah, you just be patient, and he gets stressed out, and then eventually you just attack it. That's not weak. See if I can keep him distracted. Look, a Bane! Oh my god. He doesn't have combat shield, so my +3 one-shots his Marines. It's actually super good. Yeah, he doesn't have +3 armor, and... Okay, let's just get it going. At this point, we don't need to be timid anymore. We didn't need to before, but it's safer that way.
Your dedication will be rewarded.
1,337.
Thank you, Ryan Climbs. He's retreating to the planetary. Do I not have any anti-air? Go get this base, Queen. Yeah, you can kill the Broodlords, but what about the Ultras now? It's a bigger concern. This one Ultra can probably end the game. Despite the Vikings here. I just made 6 more Ultras, by the way. Get it! No, you got this! Get the SCV! Oh god, it has armor! It has +3 armor, the Queen does no damage. Okay, I was wrong. Oh my god. It takes like 1 damage a hit. God damn it. He's coming across. Here come the Ultras. He's making a break for it. This is awkward. Hey, another planetary. The Kaiser Blades doing work. And there they lied, waiting. What about the other 7 Ultras, though? What's the game plan with that one? Just keep going. Also, we chopped this down. Oh my god, that Ultra burned so hard. Yeah, that went longer than I needed to. He's one of those players. You gotta respect him, because he's like, well, he could still throw up until the very end. He was looking for the opportunities. But what a lot of Zerg players will do, which is a mistake, is commit. The worst thing you can do against a Terran player, especially a Terran player who has less bases than you and less upgrades. Yeah, if you're like your economy's not great and you're gonna like you don't have upgrades on the way, then you have to commit. But what you don't want to do, is commit while you have advantages. There's no reason to trade your army if you're winning the war. So you let them get onto the creep. You don't go after them. You let them step onto your creep, and as soon as they do, you kill them. But you wait until that point. You get another base. You get your hive tech. You don't go picking a fight on their side. Not until you get that hive tech and you have everything locked down and defended. Because, especially a Zerg, especially if you're not as experienced with Zerg and you're maybe not on top of your injects or your creep spread, that gives you time to focus on it. That's a good habit in general to be in. But also, it's a good habit to win against Terran as well. If you're relying on, well, I do my 2 base roaches every game, and then if it doesn't win, I make more roaches, and I usually lose, but I don't know how to do anything but make roaches. Well, the solution here would be to not just do 1 base roach. I mean 2 base roach. Like, So, right now I see 2 gas and a factory. So what I'm going to do is immediately make a robo. No matter what he's building out of that, I'm going to build a robo right off the bat. Yeah, it's not going to do anything in the long run, but it's keeping him at home. That's actually a pretty big win. Just keeping him busy. While he deals with this pylon. I'm going to cancel it at the last second here. But I see he's building a reactor. And I kept the Reaper at home for long enough to be able to get this adept out. But so let's talk about the thought process here. He's going to have a lot of tech. What are his options? So as he's not going to have a bunch of Marines or Marauders. He's going to have either Cyclones or Widow Mines, and then he's going to have Starport units, more than likely. So if the Starport units are, it's a medevac and he can go for drops, especially Widow Mine drops, I need detection. If it's Cyclones, I want Immortals. So it's just a nice basic safe option is going for that rope. I'm going to start out. I'm actually going to get an observer. Sometime, like, if I hadn't delayed him a little bit, if I hadn't seen the exact timing, then I would probably start with an Immortal just to be safe. But the Robo is the safety option. It doesn't give you too many choices to attack him, but I have a second base he doesn't. It's very simple. So I'm on defense now. Until I defend for long enough that I can counter. And I got it before the Mothership Core, because overcharge is good, but it just buys time. It doesn't actually give you a winning strategy. Having an overcharge to delay his cyclones doesn't do much if you can't eventually kill the cyclones when you run out of overcharge. So that's why I went for the robo beforehand. And that's the big threat, are the cyclones. Like so. Like, I'm going to buy a little bit of time with this one pylon, then an Immortal's going to be out, and that's going to make all the difference. Getting the Observer almost, like, that's why I'm saying, like, if he's on point, you got to be very careful, because he could get across the map. He has to turn around, and now we've got this finished. It's a very particular timing here. And now we're going to have Warp Gate done as well. So, if he comes across with more, I'm going to have another overcharge and another Immortal. That's the basic defense there. Looks like he's continuing to go down that road. I'm getting sentries because, one, Guardian Shield is incredibly good because it reduces range damage. Cyclones don't do a lot of damage. Their attack does very little damage. Against armored, it's 5. Against non-armored, it's 3. But, they fire very quickly. And the range damage reduction of 2 from the Guardian Shield means you cut out 40% of their damage against armored and 67% of their damage against non-armored units. So it pretty much turns them into, it turns that 2x4 into a pillow, is what that Guardian Shield does. I'm going to get a Twilight Council and a Forge, just the safety options. I'm building a Warp Prism as well, so I can reinforce. And then I'm going to have an Observer building. Yeah, he's got everything sitting at home here. And at this point, I'm not confident I can kill him, but I'm going across the map. Like I said, I defended long enough, and now I can go across the map. I have an Observer right over him. And what is my choice here? I'm going to go with the Adept Glaives. I have no Adepts right now, but that's actually not that important. We're going to go on up. Force Field as well as Guardian Shield. I just used my Guardian Shield though, so I gotta make sure to be careful. It looks like he has an he's dropping down, but I can bash through. That's the strength of the Immortals. They do a lot of... They're pretty good at killing things, so... A little bit of fancy micro there. Probably unnecessarily fancy, but... And I'm gonna get a Robo Bay. Get +1. I'm gonna get one more Observer out here. And, I mean, I'm taking a third now. He has one of mine here, right? How did I lose that unit before? And now I have 3 bases to 1. So I did the math. 3 is more than 1. My people got back to me. Tremendous people, very smart people with good brains. And they told me that I was right all along. Is it worth it to just kill this, though? Is that going to be the end of him? I'm bashing through the, because Immortals don't do nearly as much damage against non-armored units. They still do a lot of damage, but just not nearly as much. As we work through. Yeah, he definitely is a player who fights till the very end. Oops. He fights till that last unit every time. So, we have to go finish the job. Which is why it's important, just in case. I have a third base, I have everything else, I have all my T's crossed, I have all my I's dotted, I have all my bases saturated. So that way, I can come in with a game-ending push instead of being so focused on that. I now have 2,500 minerals, 2,500 gas, and no units, and suddenly, oh shit, Liberators are good. You know exactly what I'm talking about, everybody. All right. He's still going on this road. No third base. He's still going. He's seen my third, I'm like reasonably sure. Calling the boys. Alright, so what I'm going to do, that's going to be the end of what I'm going to put on, well, not the end yet. We're going to do one more thing that I'm going to put on YouTube as my, like, bi-monthly guide, 2.5 hours long. I don't want it to be, like, 4 hours, because nobody's going to watch a 4-hour video. A lot of it will go to waste, right? So, 2.5 hour video. But we'll do a Q&A for a few minutes, and I'll do my best to concisely answer questions on any race. Just highlight with @WinterGaming, and I'll take and answer the questions that I think are most productive. How do I set up camera location hotkeys? I do have a guide, but you can go into hotkeys and set location in global. Is well, right here, I can show you. Camera, create location. I've re-hotkeyed to Control F2 to Control F5, and then F2 through F5 to jump to them. Is what I've found the easiest. They're very useful once you get the hang of them. I pretty much always, what am I trying to say? I always put them on my bases, usually my first 4 bases. I want to get into using them on other locations, but I'm not very good at it. How do you avoid a macro game as Zerg? Trying to avoid any particular type of game is usually not the most productive way to improve. How do I counter mass hydras as Protoss? If it's just hydras, there are plenty of counters, but the best things to add in are colossi, disruptors, Psystorm, just splash damage in general, because usually hydras have something in front of them to tank the damage, so you want to be able to get through them as quickly as possible. Archons are okay, but they suffer from a lack of range, so focus on those Robo units or High Templar. When is it good to use Zealots against Zerg or Terran? Against Zerg, Charge Lots are usually better in the later game because they don't cause gas, and they're better at Harass because of their charge. But not usually until you are on at least 3 bases. Against Terran, it's pretty rare when you're making Zealots, except against mech. Usually against mech, Charge Lots are better than Adepts. How to defend early Liberator tank push as Terran? The key to defending early on as Terran is air control. Get a reactor and start pumping out Vikings. If you have to give up your second base because they're doing a 1-base push, you got to give it up. Cut your losses, but you need air control. That's the solution to pretty much every early push in TVT. How do you overcome disruptors in PvP? By killing his disruptors. There are some simple tricks to it. 1, you need to have your disruptors on a different hotkey. 2, never have all your disruptors stacked up, just have one at a time. And 3, if you can use an Oracle for Revelation to keep track of his disruptors, it makes things a lot easier. Tanks in TvP, good early, late, never. They're good early. They're very good early. You'll see a lot of players like TY and Ryung, they'll go for those tank pushes because the tanks against low amounts of units do incredible damage against Stalkers, against Colossi. Later on, it's usually better to have Widow Mines because tanks are immobile and they can't move around very quickly, which means the same thing, very redundant. But tanks are good early on, but later on they suffer from that lack of mobility. So usually 2 or 3 tanks and then switching into Widow Mines depending on what they're doing. How does Oracle into Adept Phoenix do against faster Widow Mines? You have to be very careful. Usually if they're really heavy on the Widow Mines and you're not able to get early damage, it's better to just transition into Colossi rather than trying to fight into it. How to defend a 1-base Cyclone push is Protoss? Like I did just that last game. If you scout, if you send that worker out at 1 minute and you see they're going for a factory and 2 gases on 1 base, which is usually a Cyclone push or something similar, then you get the Robo immediately after the Cyber Core. You're going 1 gate expand, I assume. And then you make it immortal right off the bat. You're able to get a Mothership Core out with 1 overcharge that should buy just enough time to get an immortal out to counter the Cyclones. Are workers doing anything if you put more than 16 workers per base? You can check my guide on workers and economy for the details, but yes, workers 1 to 16 mine 100% capability. Each worker adds as much income as the last one. After 16, up to 24 workers, you still get more income, but as you add more, 17 and 18 add most of a full worker, whereas workers 23 and 24 add only about half. So it's diminishing returns. After 24, it's better to be long-distance mining entirely, because you get no benefit after 24. What is the best way to gather information as Zerg after initial scouting? Overlord speed early on and sending them around. How do you choose your anti-air Zerg and when? I mean, as early as possible. In the early mid-game, Queens are your best anti-air. Trying to, rush up to Corruptors or relying on Spore Crawlers is inefficient. But as time goes on, if they're going for, Sky Toss or something, you have to decide, can I hit a Hydra timing, or do I need to go Corruptors? And usually the better answer is Corruptors, almost all of the time. Why aren't Baneling drops as Zerg more common? Because they're difficult to pull off and not miss something else. And they can be almost entirely ineffective, because when you drop a Baneling, you lose the Baneling, and a lot of the time you'll lose the Overlord, so it's pretty costly, and it's not usually worth the investment of time or resources. How to stop early tank Liberator pushes Protoss? You need to keep them as far away as possible. If that means shading Adepts on top of their army and then canceling them, you gotta do that. Using units like Phoenixes to pick off is a good option as well. Hitting from a couple different angles, maybe you opened up Robo, you get a Warp Prism, and you try to swing around behind it. But the worst thing you can do is just sit back and let them siege you up for no reason. If you do that, you're probably going to lose. You need to be out fighting them on the open field. As Zerg against DT drop, when should I drop a Roach Warren? If you don't know what they're doing and you've seen a Twilight Council or you haven't seen anything, the safe time to drop a Roach Warren is 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Does a 4th worker in the gas add any benefit? No. Should I play Protoss to better reacquaint with mechanics or play Zerg? My favorite playstyle. Play whatever you're most interested in, but I recommend you play the other races besides your main race at least 1 day a week. Why don't we see Baneling Speed be used in ZVZ during a Ling Baneling fight? Because by the time you get Baneling Speed, you have Lair Attack, and if you have Lair Attack, you can get Roaches, Mutas, or any number of things that are efficient against Banelings. When is it better to go Dark Shrine instead of Templar Archives? I mean, 1, if you think there's an opportunity to do DT harass. too if you don't have access to that much gas. Like, if you're going for a Stalker-heavy composition or something like that, and you're still using a lot of gas, usually it's better to go for DT Archons rather than High Templar Archons, because you don't have that much gas to spare, so you use the minerals instead. Alright. As Zerg, what's the general timing to start teching and transitioning from speedlings on 3 bases versus a 2-base Protoss? Usually around that 3:30 to 4 minute mark, you have to decide, am I going to continue going down the Ling Bane route, or am I going to go to Roaches? Am I going to get a lair or more Queens? By 4 minutes, you need to kind of make a concerted decision on what you're going to be doing. Whether it's with Overlord speed, or you've scouted at the front, they have adepts, or they brought an Oracle in, or something like that. Around 4 minutes is when you need to start making decisions. How do you beat Turtle Sky Toss as Zerg? I mean, there was the buff to Corruptors. Corruptors are still a good counter, but, I mean, if you want to see, watch my games casting Snoot, or just watch Snoot in general, because what he does, it's a long battle. You can't just, there's no, this is how you beat it. It's a long process of making sure they can't be cost-effective, having things like Infestors with Neuroparasite to try to Neuroparasite motherships. You get Corruptors to target down whatever units you can, and a key point is Zergling run-bys to force the army back. Having 20 or 30 supply of Zerglings hitting a base that they're not at forces them out of position. What are the best ways to improve control outside of playing ladder? I mean, there's no substitute, but I think an important thing to do, once again, is play the other races. That doesn't necessarily improve your control directly, but just in knowing how other units work. Like, you're going to get better at controlling your Stalkers against Liberators if you're playing with Liberators and losing to Stalkers. Like, if you're making the units that you have trouble dealing with, then you can kind of learn their weaknesses. So I think playing other races, at least on occasion, helps out a lot with that. Okay. So thank you guys. That'll be the end. That's how I'm going to cut off the YouTube guide as well. If you missed any of it, I'll be posting this on YouTube. It's probably going to take like 6 hours to process. But I'll be posting that, and that will be my big guide thing for this month. So check out YouTube command, all of that. Thank you guys for watching that. 2 seconds of silence so I can cut the VOD. And, what am I trying to say? I'll still be doing educational commentary, but it's very